I think we can all agree that immigration is a problem, or illegal immigration. And illegal immigration is something that I do indeed have a problem with. I don't know of any other country in the world that has a policy of open borders, but the U.S. seems to have that, as illegal aliens pour over the border from Mexico. And really, I favor a solution, but I also favor a humane solution. I don't want these people to be harmed in any way, shape, or form. You have some people who believe that a good strategy would be to stand and shoot them, men, women, and children alike, as they attempt to cross the border into this country, but I think that's barbaric. The Mexican government has proven that the way that it solves poverty is to essentially force all of its poor people to come to the U.S., or encourage them to come to the U.S., hoping that the U.S. will grant them amnesty. Then they won't return to Mexico and be a burden on the Mexican economy. And the elites who run the Mexican government really don't want to solve the illegal immigration crisis. But I think they should. And I think the U.S. has to work with Mexico and try to force it in some way to adopt some kind of policy that would stem the flow of illegal immigrants. You also have to go after the businesses that hire illegal immigrants as cheap laborers, picking fruit and doing whatever else they do that Americans would do, but not for the same wages that a Mexican worker might earn. But granting amnesty to people who break the law doesn't really isn't really a precedent you want. But there are a few things that bother me. First of all, I think this is very much a racial issue, because I think that if Mexico were Sweden, and you had a bunch of Swedish people who were fleeing their country and pouring over the border illegally by the millions, I don't think we would have much of an outrage, or at least the kind of outrage we have now. And I personally think that if this were any group, regardless of race, it'd still be an outrage, because they're immigrating here illegally, and that's a problem. I really don't have a problem whatsoever with legal immigrants, people who can come from any corner of the world and go through a legal process and become a citizen of this country. I'm proud of my country. So proud that I'm willing to show it off, and I like to show it off. I like it when people come here and can actually make something of themselves. People who want to come to flee persecution, people who want to come here in order to get away from oppressive governments, people who are fleeing for their lives. I welcome them with open arms, as long as they go through the legal means of immigration. Certainly the Mexican government wouldn't tolerate American citizens smuggling themselves into Mexico. The Mexican government would demand assimilation from Americans who might come to Mexico. They would want them to speak Spanish and adopt at least some Mexican customs. But I think Mexicans who come to this country and wave the Mexican flag should probably just go right back to where they come from, because, I mean, if Mexico's really so great, why aren't you there? At least people who came here from Germany and Italy and Russia and Poland and Greece and elsewhere came here and didn't want to go back to their countries, because if their countries were great, or if they liked their countries, they would have stayed there. So I really don't see the point of Mexican immigrants waving around Mexican flags if they chose to come here instead. But as I said, I favor a humane solution. I don't think these people should be exploited. I think a lot of them are honest and hard-working. And I think it's a political tactic by some, because these people would become Democrats. So it's very advantageous to the Democrats to want all of these people to be granted amnesty. I'm not terribly concerned with the demographic shift, meaning that, you have people who say, well, there'd be more brown people than white people and that's a problem. That doesn't really matter to me all that much. I really don't think that that's much of an issue. But I do have a problem with people breaking the law. We have a pretty liberal immigration policy anyway. But we can't really put the National Guard on the borders because they're all fighting in Iraq. Maybe we can build a fence and reinforce it with National Guardsmen once we bring them home from Iraq and put them to work guarding the borders, which I think many of them would be grateful to do considering the hell they experience every day fighting in Baghdad. So those are my thoughts on illegal immigration. I think most Americans probably don't like the illegal immigration either. But I'd like to think that most Americans also favor a humane solution, something that would not harm the ordinary Mexican or his family. Now certainly there are terrorists and criminals, drug dealers and others who get across the border. They should be deported immediately. Should we deport the millions of illegal immigrants who are in this country? That's a problem. I really don't know what to say about that. But in any sense, we certainly need to adopt a better policy than we have, because open borders is not a good thing. And maybe the next president will, in fact, try to solve the problem, and not sort of postpone it and delay it, as this president has done. But really it's not George Bush's fault, because he inherited immigration crisis from his predecessors. But nonetheless, I want a solution, and I think most Americans do. Whatever that solution may be, maybe it has to be tough, maybe it has to be uncompromising, maybe it has to include the Mexican government. But whatever the case, a solution of some kind is certainly needed in order to protect our borders and ourselves.